in New Jersey and the host of Money Talk with Melanie. And Barney Frank, he's the former Democratic congressman from Massachusetts. Welcome to First Edition.
Thank you. I'm trying to get my...
Oh, okay.
You still look sharp,
You look
Barney.
good.
You still
Looking
look
good.
sharp.
Looking good, Barney.
I like a red tie, though, instead of the light blue, but it's okay.
And Melanie and I are coordinated. But speaking of the latest report we just heard from Jody Cohen, Melanie, what do you think of the timing of this ceasefire deal? Of course, it is 60 days it's supposed to last, and that will bring us to the Trump administration. So in many ways, this is buying us time with what is occurring in the Middle East, but curious to hear your perspective about why now this occurred after 14 months.
I think it's buying us time, but I also think that it's the Trump effect. I don't think that this would have happened had President Trump not won the election. I think that both sides are very well aware, but particularly Hamas and Hezbollah are very well aware that Trump does not play around. He doesn't play games. He doesn't. He's not all talk and no action. He is certainly a man of action, and he has made it very clear that he intends to have these wars end quickly, and that he's willing to do anything, everything possible to help Israel achieve that goal and maintain that democracy, not only for the sake of Israel, but also for the sake of world peace. So I think that they are very well aware of this, and they thought maybe we should get our act together and get serious about achieving peace before Trump gets back into office and has to go through some ugly means to make sure that it gets done.
Good points, good points. So, Barney, the thing is that, me personally, I don't care who gets credit. I just want to go down the track to bring about peace and civility in the Middle East. And I'm glad that it's happening now. But hopefully, Hezbollah will adhere to the 60 days so that way we can actually start brokering peace on the other side. But do you think Hamas will come to the table and eventually the Houthis so that way we can get back on track going down the path of the Abraham Accords, which Trump started during his first administration? What say you?
Well, first, I was sorry to hear my previous co-panelist really deny Joe Biden credit he deserves. The argument that the American government wasn't doing enough to help Israel was clearly blown up by this ceasefire. And it was the Biden policy completely to be supportive of Israel's Hezbollah activity that was important. Secondly, I'm not optimistic that this will have the same dynamic at Hamas, because one of the factors that was working here was the pressure that people in Lebanon, including some in the government of Lebanon, were putting on Hezbollah. Unfortunately, there is no equivalent in Gaza of the anti-terrorist feeling. You had people in Lebanon putting pressure on Hezbollah, saying, hey, look, you're ruining our country. That's not there also in Gaza. On the other hand, this does free up Israel to put even more resources into pressing its case in Gaza, although I would hope they would do it with a little bit more political sensitivity. But so those are offsets. But I think that this does increase the chances of a ceasefire in Gaza, because they cannot hope anymore, Hamas, that Israel will be distracted from going after them.
Interesting. Well, moving on to this story, the former border czar Kamala Harris addressing supporters for the first time since her concession speech. Take a listen.
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
Melanie, go ahead, Sean.
Those drinks are strong in Hawaii.
I wasn't going to go there, but I think many are saying that. Kamala was on vacation. She was in Hawaii. She couldn't get there when there was actually a crisis, when there were fires, but she was there this past week, and she's making these speeches, a 10-minute word salad speech, as members of the DNC are actually posting online that they're getting fired, that they're seeking out money from GoFundMe. I mean, Melanie, your reaction to this clip from Kamala?
Okay, so rule number one of media is not even a sip before you do a media hit. You just don't do it. And listen, I don't know that she's been drinking or not, but she always sounds like this when she does media, when she does any kind of video. She always sounds like this. And no one found her inspiring. So for her that's part of the reason why she lost. No one found her inspiring. She had the possibility of being the first Black, Asian, Blasian, whatever, woman president, definitely woman president, and no one found that message inspiring. So why she would look in the camera and say that that nobody who followed her and supported her, that you have the same inspiration, you have the same strength that you had. Well, that's probably true. The same strength, which was little to none, which is part of the reason why she lost. I don't know why the DNC doesn't make her be quiet. She's not a good representation, in my opinion, of her party and the principles that they claim that they stand for. She's just not a good messenger in that regard. And if I were in charge of the DNC, I'd tell her to be quiet.
Woo! You tell a Black woman to be quiet? Woo! That's dangerous.
Hey.
So Barney, Barney, here's the thing. What's Kamala Harris's future? Because as Melanie pointed out, there's many people at all levels within the DNC that says, you know what, Kamala should retire from politics. But is that the path that she should take? Because there's some people talking about, not the donors, but some people talking about bringing Kamala Harris back in 2028. So will the sequel be better than the original?
But I can understand your focus on the past. I've been told we were going to talk about the Trump cabinet picks. They're a real problem for Trump, I think, and his base in many ways. But this obsessive focus on Kamala Harris, I don't understand it. It's just a distraction. And I was particularly struck by my co-panelists saying that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, should make her shut up. What a terrible misunderstanding of democracy that is. In the first place, national committees do not have that kind of power. But even if they did,
what good did that video do? What good? What value was in that video that she did?
Why can't I finish? Why can't I finish a statement? You let her talk. Why can't I talk? The notion.
I love interrupting you, actually, but go ahead, Barney.
But you're interrupting me. The point is that saying that the Democratic National Committee should shut up the woman who got 70+ million votes is ridiculous and indicative of a misunderstanding of democracy. As to her future, I don't think defeated presidential candidates on the Democratic side generally don't do very well. There's been a history on the Republican side of people losing one time and then running again. On the Democratic side, when Adlai Stevenson was defeated by Dwight Eisenhower, someone said to him, well, now you're the titular head of the Democratic Party. And he replied, well, there was none more titular than I. So I don't see any strong role for her in the future. But again, struck by both of you, all three of you, wanting to focus on the past and not talk about where we go from here. Because I think we see problems for Trump.
No one would have mentioned her if she didn't do a video.
Right.
But go ahead, Melanie.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You just invoked Dwight Eisenhower and then talked about how we're in ancient history, when in the most recent history, literally the last presidential election, democracy was defeated and ignored when you put Kamala Harris up as your candidate. And it was the DNC, that organization, that was in charge of not giving your side of the aisle even a primary. Those 70 million votes were like the first big group of votes that Kamala Harris got in modern history. And we're going to talk about me telling her to be quiet is
No.
not democracy. She's no longer running for anything, so she
No,
should be
you're
quiet. She
totally
is damaging your
The
brand.
reason
I'm just saying, from an organizational perspective, I would tell her to be quiet. She can talk all she wants, but
No,
if I was in charge of DNC, I would be like,
I
well,
understand
sit on
what
the
you
island
want
somewhere,
away
drink
from
my
what you
time,
said.
and shush, because you're doing damage.
I understand you're backing away, but the fact is that there was no primary because there were no candidates. Nobody wanted to run at that point against her because that would have been more divisive. So, and again,
Right.
I listened to what she said. I didn't hear anything particularly exciting one way or the other. And again, this focus on the defeated candidate rather than wanting to talk about the future. Trump's got some serious problems. By the way, I have to say that as a Democrat, I'm grateful so far to Trump for a couple of things, actually three things. First of all, he did what every Democrat had hoped would happen. He managed to remove Matt Gaetz from public life. I'm happy for that. Secondly, by appointing a gay man who's married to a man to be one of the most important people in the administration, I think he's made it clear that Republican opposition to same-sex marriage has now basically gone away in any effective way. Although I'm looking forward to his having the new Attorney General explain to him why she went to court to keep him from being able to marry the man he loved. And finally, having a strongly pro-choice Secretary of Health and Human Services will reassure people who believe that birth control and abortion should not be hindered. They'll feel much better that you won't see the FDA under Robert Kennedy, who's a very pro-choice guy, interfering with things like the morning after pill.
But
So you love the picks, Barney. Excellent.
These are good. Well, but you're actually making the point that many are saying that Trump is not scared of picking people with different ideological beliefs. And he's not picking people based on their sexual orientation, on their race, on their gender. He's picking them because they're the best people for the job, Melanie. And this is what we're consistently seeing. We're also seeing this in our corporations. Walmart is rejecting DEI. This is not where our country is headed, and it's
But you
better
want to change
for it.
the subject again.
We
The
are
fact is,
not concerned.
Oh, you're interrupting,
People are
Barney.
saying
Melanie.
Let Melanie finish, and we'll go back to you.
To your point, we are not concerned, nor is President Trump concerned about who somebody is sleeping with or the color of a person's skin. What President Trump is concerned about are two things: whether or not those people can do the job. And I would argue that many of his choices have the communications job to make sure that the policies are messaged in a proper way and in a way that the mainstream media and the legacy media can't mischaracterize what he's trying to do with his policy choices. So I think there's kind of a twofold effort at play with the cabinet members that he's picked so far. That they not only have the background in the subject matter or the areas in which they'll oversee, but they also have the communications job that are going to be helpful in the long term.
All right, so we have 15 seconds left, Barney. I'm going to give it all to you.
well, I want to give credit to the Republican voters. They've been, one of the things I envy is that the most diehard ideologues on the Democratic side have been very, very tough on Democrats who try to take public opinion into account. The Republican base, my co-panelist said, well, we don't care. Trump doesn't care who people sleep with. Well, he's made that personally very clear. But the Republican base, until recently, until Trump was very much concerned about that, very much opposed to same-sex marriage. So as I said, I give credit to the Republican base because they've allowed Trump to walk away from being anti-abortion.
Okay, that's longer than 15 seconds.
Filibuster.
And
All right, this is not Congress. This is First Edition.
Yes, it is.
Thanks so much, Melanie, Collette, Barney, Frank. Definitely enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we appreciate you joining us this morning.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You got it.